Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And in this video we're going to be turning to my army archive and we're going to be looking at the Free People, otherwise known as the Empire and the world that was. And to help me with this discovery of their lore is going to be Nathan from the Great Book of Grudges. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm good, mate. It's about time we did another one of these.
I think so. It's been a little bit of a while, hasn't it? I think it's been quite a bit going on in the hobby and stuff, but it's nice to go back to a bit of lore and uniting the gap between fantasy and what is now Age of Sigmar.
Definitely, definitely. So today we're going to be talking about the Empire then. This is going to be really fun because there is a lot to it and I'm kind of curious to see what's happened in Age of Sigmar with them now.
Yes, so in Age of Sigmar they play they're obviously a different role to what they were before. They are still very cool, but obviously the majority of their lore is in fantasy because obviously the Empire had about, would you say about, what was it, 20, 30 years of lore building for the Empire?
Yeah, they had about, they're one of the oldest races in the actual known tabletop, and it's pretty much where everything started. A lot of people don't know that Sigmar was actually a person in the lore before he became a god, and he's the actual person who founded the Empire.
Yeah, see, it's just like that, it shows that he was once a person. He wielded Gatmaraz as well, didn't he?
Yeah, it was gifted to him by the Dawi after a quite large battle, which pretty much saved both the races whilst they were fighting one of the largest greenskin hordes that had ever appeared in the Warhammer world. It's kind of like it showed the friendship between the Dawi and the Empire, which has lasted pretty much all the way until the end times, and I'm hoping there's some sort of friendship there in Age of Sigmar.
Oh, there most certainly is indeed, and that's also what we'll get to when we talk about their lore in Age of Sigmar. So, how would you give a summary of the Empire?
Well,
Let's say someone who is brand new to Warhammer, has heard about there are humans in fantasy, and obviously the main collection of them being within the Empire. How would you describe it to them? Like, what sort of society is it?
well, it's very varied. It's a bunch of provinces together. We'd have to go quite back, and I will go in detail in my own lore video next week. But it's how it works is way back then, about 10,000-ish years before the end times, there was a bunch of human tribes, all of them varying in different cultures and so on. But eventually, one man, Sigmar Heldenhammer, he united the tribes, seeing that there was no other alternative. Humanity was better standing together than it was apart. Eventually, when he united them, he did found the Empire. The Empire actually founded a little bit after his death, which we ended up getting a multitude of emperors after that. But how it works is, over the years, they've been very similar. It's very similar to very ancient German stuff for our timeline, like real life. But it's very different though, because it's very hard to explain. Where you look at, for example, Reichland, they're very German. The language is based on them. It's a Reichsspiel and so on. Then you look at Midland, and they're more like very similar to Norwegians in a sense. They're very brutish. They're very strong. They're more used to dealing with harsh conditions. It's absolutely stunning when you see how one empire is spread throughout so many different provinces. Two of which were lost, by the way, after a certain amount of years due to beastmen and orcs and so on. But think about it very similar to how the United States work. You know that you've got 50 states, they're all the same people, but they kind of vary.
Yep.
It's absolutely interesting when you look about it, because I've seen loads of people who are Empire players, but they see loyalties to maybe Ostland or Hochland rather than the Empire as a whole. They see the lore and they'll actually see this like sense of pride for their province.
That's what's a really nice thing, isn't it? To belong to a greater society, but also still feel like you've got, I don't really know how to describe what, like patron to your own sort of sector of it. Like you said, like the people who, like how different Reichland is. And Reichland, to be that's the capital of the empire, isn't it?
That was the last capital. The capital of the empire always changed depending on the emperor. The we had a few changes of the capital. For example, during a certain event, we had a very cowardly emperor who was based, I believe, in Hockland. But once he realized some stuff was happening and he was going to be pretty much destroyed, he moved it to Reichland. It's pretty much stayed there due to the fact that the last two emperors were from Reichland themselves. But it's always varied. The capital of the empire will change pretty much every cycle.
All right, so because of was it Karl Franz was the last emperor? Is that right?
Karl Franz was the last crowned emperor, and his father was the one before that. It was actually really funny. We had Karl Franz, but there was a chance that we would have ended up with Boris Todbringer as the emperor, and he actually wanted to be emperor. So we had a lot of different changes. There is an event. Once again, I'll be going into real great detail in another video, but we did have an event where we had an era known as the Three Emperors.
Oh, right. So were they united, or is it much like in Game of Thrones where there's the War of the Five Kings?
It's kind of like that, yeah. It's pretty much like the whole War of the Five Kings. It's really interesting when you see that, because obviously they any representative of their province obviously wants to be emperor. They say, yeah, I've got the right to rule because so and so and so. But then someone else would come up, oh, I've got the right to rule because so and so and so.
They've all got their legitimate claims to the throne, haven't they, as it was, or the position of emperor. And so what I think is really interesting about the empire and also the free people is that they are humanity, aren't they? They are what we would be in Warhammer. You know how we like to, obviously when we play armies, I mean, there's obviously some empire and free people players, but a lot of the time, we play as these mighty, immortal champions, demons or like vampires or something like that. But in reality, if we were actually in fantasy, we would be these humans, which are, let's face it, probably not the most powerful race out of everything there is in Warhammer. So what I'm trying to say is obviously how, like, in our world we've got today, the human race is the most dominant species on the planet. But putting us into a world where we are no longer that by far on top of the food chain, it really shows just like we have our rivalries between each other, but we do unite against greater threats. I think that's seen quite a bit, isn't it, in fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, we do have... The humans are the most populated race in the whole Warhammer world, in the fantasy world. We have loads of human kingdoms, the Empire being the largest one, but we do have Bretonia, Ind, Cathay, Nippon, and so on. But the Empire itself, they've seen a level of prosperity due to the fact of their alliance with the dwarves. It's been a little bit easier for them to grow.
Yeah, because they've got a lot more advanced technology, haven't they? Then quite well compare the Empire to Bretonia as an example.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the Empire, they've been using their money very wisely. Like, for example, the steam tank, which I believe is still a unit in Age of Sigmar. Am I correct?
Yep, that's absolutely correct.
Well, a lot of people think that's just an Imperial unit, but a lot of it's people don't understand that the Empire used to just buy stuff. For example, the steam tanks themselves are bought from the free nation of Talia. It's not actually an Imperial-made unit.
So I would have thought that was made in Nuln, is it? Nuln?
Yeah. I thought that the same, but it's actually purchased from Talian engineers. We had a lot of different things. The Empire itself does vary. Like, for example, Reichland itself is quite rich, but Stirland is quite poor. Stirland is very close to Sylvania, next to the Vampire Counts, and it's been known that they can't afford that many black powder weapons and so on, so they prefer crossbows, purely because they can't actually afford it. And, well, there's a little snippet that they can't afford many shoes, too.
Yeah, and it's also... Is the Mute in Stirling as well? Mute, is it?
Yeah, that's where we get the Halflings, which is based a lot on UK lore and stuff like that. Very old school UK pagan stuff. They're not really counted as real members of the Empire, but I think they're given like a bit of a leeway vote.
Are they very much Tolkien-esque?
Yeah, very, very Tolkien-esque. They're obsessed with food. One of their artillery pieces is literally just, it throws a pot of food at people. It's hilarious.
Fantastic. And yeah, like you say, very close to the Vampire Counts, which that's also the other thing about the Empire. I mean, obviously you're going to go much more into detail in a future video, but they're surrounded by countless of threats to humanity, aren't they? Like,
yeah.
Like, you've got obviously the Vampire Counts are right there, but you've got, the Chaos to the north, but the vampires are very close, aren't they? Like, very much like, well, they're actually within the Empire borders, aren't they? Like,
well,
sort of officially / not officially.
Sylvania's considered part of Stirland. It was annexed, but the Stirlanders kind of like washed their hands. They're like, oh, well, we don't want to deal with that. And well, with obvious reasons. I mean, would you want to deal with Manfred and all that?
Yeah, it quite simply is not worth their time or effort or people who would be sacrificed.
Aye, definitely. I mean, we did have Vlad von Carstein, who wanted to be emperor, even as a vampire. And during the end times, he was actually acknowledged as a proper elector count.
Because then he help out the Empire?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. He helped out because obviously Vlad, unlike Manfred, was smart enough to realize, oh no, they're going to blow up the world.
yeah, like, I mean, like, it would be lovely to be the Empire or the Emperor. However, if there is no Empire in the first place, if it all gets blown up, then maybe we should focus on that being a priority first.
Definitely, definitely. And we've had very colourful characters in the in the Empire, which I'm hoping some of that has gone. I know that I think some characters were turned into Stormcasts. I might be wrong.
Yes, there's like nothing officially confirmed, but there's very much, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. This person is now a Stormcast sort of thing. So it is quite cool. And the thing what I like is that they haven't, as far as I'm aware, they haven't officially announced it. But I like it how it's a bit like this new character, maybe like Balthasar Gelt, for example. He may be now reincarnated as a Stormcast in this new model. We're not confirming it, but he might be, and that adds that bit of mystery to it, which I think Warhammer, the thing what I love about Warhammer is obviously its lore is so good and so rich that so much of it is explained, that these little bits that aren't explained and sort of left to mystery, I think are what really, really entice you to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there are certain characters in the Empire's lore, like we had the Mad Count of Averland. He was absolutely insane, and like to the point that he declared war on a river, I believe, like literally just a river.
On a river?
Yeah.
What did it do to offend him?
Well, apparently he thought it was Chaos Corrupted. There's a lot of weird stuff with these characters, and it shows that there's a colourful thing about them. I mean, Karl Franz is the perfect character to talk about with this. Like, he's not only the last emperor that we had. Technically, you can kind of count Volton depending on what timeline you're looking at, but he's the man who stood and united a bunch of dying factions to pretty much just go like, come on, we need to survive, we need to fight, and it's amazing when you look at it because it's very heroic, and you get this sense of like pride, where especially like I know during the end times, I know a few Empire players who were reading that and they were like, this is really cool. They gave him so much depth, only just and like they were a bit angry afterwards because they killed him off, but I'm still hoping that he's somewhere represented in Sigmar because Karl Franz is a big name.
Yeah, there's a chap in Age of Sigmar called the Cerstant Prime. Does that ring any bells or anything?
Yeah, that would be like the Warhammer 40k equivalent to a Primarch.
Yes, so basically what it is, if you've seen any of the Stormcast range, here's the big Stormcast who has got wings and he's got that sort of like swirling vortex of, I think it's cloth underneath him, and he's wielding Gamma-Raz. That is what is rumoured to be...
Wait, he's wielding Gamma-Raz, really?
Wielding Gamma-Raz, yeah, he's a big guy.
Wow.
Yeah, and that Gamma-Raz weapon is real nasty. Basically, one of the cool things he can do with it is, so instead of setting up this guy on the board at the start of the game, he can basically be dropped in later, and whilst he's waiting to be dropped in, he's in the in the realm of heavens. So he's basically getting more and more pumped up. So the longer you leave him, let's say you leave him like 3 turns to come down onto the battlefield, when he comes down, he's making so many more attacks with Gamma-Raz. It's insane. And he's really, really good. But what's rumoured is that he is actually I think the line goes something along the lines of he's the emperor of a long lost great empire. So sort of very much hints towards not Gamma-Raz. So very much hints towards Karl Franz, which is quite cool. I would have just loved them to have Deathclaw. Deathclaw should make it.
No, I'm looking at the model now. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's very hard to tell because we had loads of great emperors who have basically saved the Empire in a multitude of ways. I mean, I did a little small lore video on a guy called Mandred Skaven Slayer, who pretty much
Did he
saved
kill
the
some
Empire.
Skaven?
Yeah, yeah, he actually ended up getting a skull called, oh, the name escapes me at the moment, but it's literally a Skaven skull, and he turned it into a helmet. And basically, this was when we had an event known as, like, it was like the Black Plague equivalent, where the Skaven
Yeah.
were almost taking over the world, one of the many attempts that they did. But we had loads of emperors like that, Magnus the Pious too. You know, there's so many cool things that we ended up getting in terms of emperors. It could be practically anyone.
Yeah, well, that's it. They haven't nailed down anything, which is quite nice. And so, yes, that sort of leads into what the Empire was and stuff in the past. Obviously, like you say, you're going to put up a more in-depth video, but it just gives us a brief sort of overall. And in Age of Sigmar, now they have turned into what is known as the Free People, purely because Games Workshop can't copyright the Empire, but for obvious reasons. It's like the name Chaos. They're so committed to that, but they can't rename it because obviously that's what Chaos is so like vital, to Warhammer, isn't it? It's such a huge part that they can't change the name of it.
Yeah,
So they're committed to that, but the Empire they can change. So it's changed to Free People, and to be honest, there's actually multiple factions. What the Empire used to be and has been turned into. What we'll be looking at today is the Free People, and this is the majority of the Empire. So this is like your Empire soldiers, your great swords, your pistoliers, your outriders, your Empire generals, your your demigriffs. There's so many griffins now. I was trying to remember
yeah,
which one they are. Your demigriffs, things like that, and essentially they were saved by Sigma and put into the mortal realms. That's very brief of how they were saved, so I can't exactly remember. To be fair, when Age of Sigmar first started in the lore, it's quite a long time ago now. It's about 3-4 years ago, and but anyway, they were saved and given new life in the mortal realms. And if you first time watching anything to do with Age of Sigmar, essentially the mortal realms, there is a realm for every law of magic that there was in fantasy. So there is a realm of life, there's a realm of death, there's a realm of metal, there's a realm of fire, there's a realm of light, and so on. And so these people, when they were brought to the mortal realms, I think they first started off in Azir, which is the realm of heavens, and then they went down and established mighty civilizations within the realms themselves. And everything was great, everything was prosperous. They were rebuilding empires, and like I say, great and mighty civilizations to rival any that there were in fantasy. However, there was this thing that humans do after a while, being a bit too comfortable, similar to the Eldar, where they were like, we've got things pretty good right now, and they started to sort of betray each other, do acts of excess, all those sorts of things. And eventually the pantheon that Sigma had set up, which is the pantheon of the gods, and this was Sigma, Nagash, the elven gods, Gork and Mork, and so on. Eventually Nagash decided that he wanted to be in charge of the pantheon, and sort of, as there was ways for Chaos trying to breach the mortal realms, as Chaos has been basically not being able to play with everyone for a very long time. They were trying to get their fingers into the mortal realms, and Nagash saw it as a opportunity. If he could let in Chaos to the mortal realms, then Sigma and Chaos would fight each other and weaken each other so much that Nagash could come in and become, the god of everything essentially, and be in charge. Fortunately, that didn't really work out, because when Nagash did that, Sigma was, as usual, he was a dick, and decided to, instead of, going after Chaos, going, oh, Nagash has pissed me off, but, I've got to sort out Chaos. So I was like, no, I'm going to send all my attention against Nagash. So there was a civil war between the Pantheon. Within this time, the Chaos forces managed to go into the mortal realms to a massive extent, and basically slaughter all the free people, to an extent, not just the free people, but the elves as well. They toppled civilizations, they destroyed empires, and they beat back every mortal there was to the realm of the heavens, which was Sigmar's realm. And basically, Sigmar locked the door and made it so Chaos could not breach it. And then many, many years later, so what I was talking about there is a thing called the Age of Myth, when all these great civilizations were being built. And when Chaos poured into the mortal realms, that was known as the Age of Chaos. So, like I say, many, many, many years later, Sigmar then created his Stormcast and released them into the mortal realms to beat back the forces of Chaos. And this is what was now known as the Age of Sigmar. And basically, he beat back Chaos to a point where the humans that survived could start trying to rebuild these civilizations back in the realms. So Chaos was beaten back by Sigmar, still a big threat, but pushed back, and the humans went back down to the realms and started these civilizations again. And when I say the humans, I mean mainly like the free people, that's the biggest source of humans, and rebuild these mighty empires. And the nice thing about them, what makes them a little bit different to how they were in the world of fantasy, is that they have things like so they are your traditional, like they've got like stone and mortar sort of keeps and all those sort of things, fortresses and stuff and cities. But they've also got things like cog fortresses, so huge mobile bastions made on clockwork, a little bit like, I don't know if you've seen a trailer for, or I think the film might be out yet, but it's called Mortal Engines by Peter Jackson, who's done it. And it's basically like huge mobile cities and stuff like that, which really, really shows their military prowess.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, so they sort of came a long way. So it's a bit of a long explanation to where they are. But and so they've got all this going on. But the great thing which humans lend to the story is, as obviously all of us are humans, we sometimes just can't help ourselves. So, although that, how all this has gone on, and, basically humanity knows that chaos is not a very nice thing to play with, there are still some humans who worship in secret cults of, Slanesh or, Zeech or Khorne or any of these. And what I really, really like about humans is that, or the free people, like I said, also just going to the bracket of humans, is that without them, it's really quite hard for chaos to exist.
Yeah, definitely, because humans are more easy to be influenced, aren't they?
Yes, like of course you do get. I think you probably get some elves and some other races that are influenced, but the humans are by far the easiest to do so.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. Actually, I did want to mention something that that you stated regarding the cogwork stuff.
Yes.
We were actually pretty much on the cusp of getting very similar stuff in fantasy. It's a Forge World model now, but we did have mechanical horses at a certain point for our elect accounts and stuff like that.
That's cool. I know you had one for your engineer. Was that Empire engineer?
Yes, the guy who throws off the pigeon bombs that can blow back at you.
Yes, that exact guy. And then you have a land ship at some point.
Yeah, the Marienburg land ship, which is essentially just a boat with wheels.
Yeah, it's sort of came a bit of away from that. But what's quite cool is there's actually a story that involves one of these cog fortresses. And obviously I won't go into the whole story, but essentially what it is a cog fortress that goes out to explore some mystery behavior from a realm gate, which leads to Shaiish, which is the realm of death. And this was also at the time of malign importance, so death becoming a huge player in Age Sigmar. And there's a mighty cog fortress that stations, I can't remember how many men, but probably like hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds to thousands of men. And have got like cavalry on it, have got like old gunnery regiment on it, those sorts of things. It's really sort of powerful fortress. Went to investigate this strange behavior coming from this realm gate, like I said, that led to the realm of death. And they first sent out their outriders and the pistoliers as scouts, and they wondered why they were getting no response. It'd been like a couple of weeks, and they had no replies from their scouts.
Hmm.
So they then sent out more. Actually, no, I think before they sent out more, they had a messenger that came to them, and this was I believe it was a White King, and said to them, you know, bow to Nagash, and we'll let you live. And these people in these cog fortresses, like I say, this mighty cog fortress, they're like, who the hell is this bone man? He can come here and tell me what to do.
Hmm.
So they sort of laughed at him and wandered off. So he went buggered off into like the forest or wherever the creepy place was, and in that time, the three people thought, right, okay, we'll send out another expedition to try and find our scouts that got lost and never came back to us. And when they left their cog fortress, there were as soon as they stepped foot onto the ground, there were these hands that clawed at them from the ground and dragged them under and killed them. And it turns out those zombies that did it, those specters, were actually the scouts that were originally sent out. So the three people were like, okay, fuck, we're not going to leave this fortress. So they eventually starved to death. And really, that's quite like a brief explanation of this story. But it really, that was the first time that we sort of heard about these cog fortresses and stuff. So it really gave some light to a army that doesn't really have any law, like there's no battle time for it, anything like that. So that's what really made it cool. And also what I'd like to say about the Free People was that, yes, Sigmar does have these immortal champions being the Stormcasts and, you know, all this sort of greatness. However, if it wasn't for the Free People, what would the Stormcasts be fighting for? You know, if it's not to banish chaos and win that fight, but if you don't have anyone to win it for, then what's the point?
No, definitely. I mean, if you look at it this way, a lot of the Stormcasts are just reanimated heroes of the past, so they too were human at some point. And sorry about that, my cat just decided to meow. I just find it really interesting. They've never had a book. Did they not have a book in the last edition too?
What, like the Free People being the Empire? No, they were part of a bigger book, but no, they haven't had their own book yet. But all that means is that they will more than likely get their own book at some point in the future.
No, I hope so, because like if you look at the models, they're absolutely gorgeous, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I'm on the website now, and like the Griffin model is absolutely fantastic. Even the demigriffs, I feel like still stand up.
Yeah, you gotta love the battle chickens.
Yeah, you've got. I mean, there's bigger battle chickens now, but you've got to love the traditional ones. And I still like, you know, we've got the Luminarch, we've got the War Altar. There's just so many nice things, and something to mention about the Empire in Age of Sigmar, and you know, being a Free People. It's like it's mentioned before. It's been divided. So if you go on to Games Workshop website now, it's not very helpful because they sort of basically Games Workshop divided the Empire, and rules-wise they are still divided. But for some reason on their website, they've united them again under Free Peoples, but that doesn't translate to the rules. But hopefully that's something we're going to see in the future, because it all just makes sense for these things to be united again. It doesn't make sense for the Steam Tank to be in a separate army from the Free People. And hopefully we're going to see that, because ever since the Legions and the Nagash battle tome that came out for Age of Sigmar, which is basically the Vampire Count Codex that came out, it united all of Death again. And then when I saw that, I was like, great, we're going to see this happen again and again. And we did. We saw it for the Beasts of Chaos, which united Beastmen again. And we also saw it for the Skaven, that united the Skaven again. And what was quite interesting about the Skaven is that we did all expect them to be united again, because that really does make sense. But before they did so, on the Games Workshop website, they united all the Skaven under one category again.
Oh, I haven't even noticed that.
Yeah, so when that happened, and some people asked me, like, do you think this is going to unite the Skaven? I said, I'm sure the Skaven will be united at some point, but don't get your hopes up about this. I think they did it before Christmas, and I was like, I'm sure they've done this so parents can easily find their child whatever the fucking Ratman they wanted for Christmas.
Well, it just makes more sense, you know. Like, it's ridiculous that it happened to me when I'm trying to buy stuff because, like, some of my subs will know I'm trying to build a 50,000 point Warhammer Fantasy Army of Skaven, and I'm literally having to go through all these little sections just trying to find the bloody model I want.
Yeah, I completely agree. So yeah, I was saying that for the ease of trying to find things, that's what it is. However, shortly after that, Skaven got their new book that united all of them. So maybe I'm thinking this isn't just for convenience of ease to find models on their website. Maybe this is actually an insight of what we can see in the future for terms of how the army is going to work. So that would be really cool if everything under the free people's category on the website, as it's got 33 models in it, or 33 things you can buy for it, it's all under one army again. That'd be absolutely fantastic. And also that it's not like aesthetically they don't go together. And like we've said, the Empire, well, in the old world, the fantasy, the Empire and the dwarfs worked very well together.
Yeah,
and it's very much the same. I mean, what little lore there is for them in Age of Sigmar, it still says very strongly that they do work very well alongside each other. Even to be fair, in the core rulebook, that's got a lot of lore in it, and it's got the main lore in it for the free people. In the under the free people category, it talks about this thing called the Ironwheel Arsenal, and the Ironwheel Arsenal is a separate army that has all the artillery pieces for which used to belong to the Empire and the dwarves. Now, the Ironwood Arsenal is not an army that you can take by itself because it has no core units, it has no battle line. So it's like just a separate army that you can pick and choose a few things from to put into your army, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when they talk about it in the lore under the free people's category, it's all within the same army. So maybe it's sort of setting up to say that, yeah, you can, start putting these things in the same army. They count as being in the same army, basically. Everything's being united again. And I think that's something we're all going to want to see, which would be really, really cool if that turns out to be the case.
I've got a question regarding the Free People's Law. So I'm on the Grand Alliance Order and Free People's, and I've noticed Volkmar the Grim on the War Altar of Sigmar.
Yeah, he's no longer. He's not. Volkmar the Grim is not alive. That'll purely be for people who play Warhammer Total War.
Right, I was about to say, because his body was used to revive Nagash.
Yeah, that's like I say. That's purely for people who play the Total War and they really like him, and they can quickly go onto the website and buy him. As I really feel like. I might be wrong when I say this because I haven't looked too much into it, but I really feel like Games Workshop is not linking the amazing game that is Total Warhammer. I don't just mean like saying like, oh, well, it's a shame that fantasy isn't around anymore, because I don't mean that at all. But what I'm saying is I feel like they're really missing out on an opportunity here to go, you love that huge Total War game, why don't you try our Warhammer game? Why not buy the models? Because I remember when the Total War game first came out, I think when you went on Steam and you clicked to play it, you know how it comes up with the little Total War menu.
Yeah.
I think there was like a little poster there saying you've played the game, now try the models. But I haven't seen anything since like that.
Well, if you search Total War on GW's website, you get about 37 results, but not everything which is actually represented in the game, which we still have. It's really weird that we don't actually still have that connection, and they should push it. I know there's a lot of people who've asked for what 40k does with 30k. Run them both together.
Yeah, I really agree on the fact that they really should push it. I mean, like, I feel like they should have maybe got a better deal. I have no idea how this works. Yeah, maybe same. Like some sort of better deal with what's the company that makes Total Warhammer again?
Creative Assembly.
Creative Assembly. Like every time someone completes a campaign or something like that, they advertise the models again. Or there's a category on the main menu for Total War, which is like a direct link to Games Workshop.
Well, you know what is a massive shame? Do you remember the Warhammer Fantasy MMO that came out? I think it was called Age of Reckoning.
Age of Reckoning? Yeah, rings a bell, but I can't completely remember it. What was it about again?
It was literally like a World of Warcraft clone where you had Order and Chaos fighting against each other and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. And
I never played it though. Was it good?
Yeah, no, it was really, really good. They've got a private server still up and so on. It's like it's not perfect and it's very dated, obviously given graphics changing and so on. But it's actually very engaging. And what they did then is they released a series of models that were exclusive to characters in the game, which you could use like a Black Orc War Boss type of thing and so on. I'm surprised they didn't do that for this. I mean, obviously we have the Fantasy Legends series, but that's just like 1 week only to buy a bunch of models.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been really cool to buy uh, what's his name, Gas, the necromancer, who's got his brothers died in the plague, and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Helman Ghost, yeah.
yeah, him and Gorse, that's it. Yeah, I mean, like this, apart from like the corpse cart model, there's nothing really for him.
Ghost didn't have a model though.
Yeah, but they can make a model. I don't care.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just think like it's a good opportunity because, I mean, it might just be me and you, Nathan, but I'm a massive fan of that Total War game. There needs to be siege battles, but I'm a massive fan of that Total War game.
No, definitely, definitely.
Which I feel like it is generally a really good game. I mean, yes, there are. I think the only problems with that Total War game is there's no main problems. There's just little touches I'd like, or what I perceive to be little touches. What I'd like to see, like just giving units formations, or just having siege battles, just little things like that. Ship battles, that's fine. I understand why we don't have those because it would have been too chaotic.
Well, I think it's called GCCM series of mods is absolutely stunning when you want new types of sieges and so on. I think they're doing a great job. The problem is with Creative Assembly, and I might be wrong here, but they have to read through so much in terms of lore that they're just scared of getting stuff wrong. And believe me, they still get stuff wrong. I've got a video coming up on that next month. Like, I'm sorry, Vlad should not be alive at this point, neither should Isabella. But, you know, they do take some creative output. Like, you see the map has changed a little bit compared to what the world is supposed to look like.
The oceans are very small.
Yeah, they're very, very small. Makes it easier for me to move around, but, like, you know, you want this grand scheme of things where it takes you, like, 12 turns to get from, say, Araby all the way to Lustria. Obviously,
Yes,
it wouldn't make sense in the gameplay format.
Well, to be fair, in the gameplay format, isn't it surely more about the journey than the destination? Like,
Yeah.
what are the other armies that you go, right, I'm finally going to take that bloody Lisbon city. And then by the time you get there, you've had so many battles with, like, I don't know, Orc Warbands or, like, Clan Pestilence that you go, right, let's go home. Let's try and do this again tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I got bitch slapped off Lustria when I was playing my Skaven. I played this Queek, I went to Confederate, I Confederated, and next thing I know, Mazda Mundi came down with a few doom stacks.
Oh, bloody hell. But you play on legendary difficult? What difficult do you play?
I play on Legendary and very hard battles, and sometimes I use mods to make it harder because it's supposed to feel like Total War. Like the tabletop, which is why I use that Steel and Faith Overhaul mod. It really gives you that feel of the tabletop too.
How does it? I haven't used that, so what does that do?
Oh, so you know when you miscast, it just basically in the standard game, I think when you miscast, it just doesn't do the spell, does it?
No.
No.
No, when you miscast it, it doesn't. But doesn't it cause damage to you as well? Or are you talking about Total War?
In Total War, yeah.
Yeah, when you miscast, I think it does a bit of damage to you, doesn't it?
I've never noticed, honestly. I've noticed it now more with Steel and Faith, where it's more likely to, especially when you overcast a spell, and it could like one-shot your mage and stuff like that, which represents the whole, I think it was rolling a 2 or a 3 on the miscast table where you can get sucked into the warp.
Oh, right. Wasn't there a thing where like Khorne could throw a skull at you as well?
Yeah, that was in the Storm of Magic. That was fantastic. You'd mess up rolling for a spell. Next thing you know, this brass skull hits you with a strength 10 hit. It's like, ouch.
That's brilliant. But I feel like we're going off topic now, so I think we're going to leave it there. But no, so the 3 people that are now in Age of Sigmar and the where they were, it's the Empire in Fantasy. Obviously, there's lots of lore for the Empire, and Nathan, like you say, you're going to do a video on them some point in the future.
Yeah,
and
it's planned for next week on Friday.
Oh, fantastic. And in Age of Sigmar, I think what I've tried to do in this video is say that there is some lore for them. And what's quite nice is that it's quite different. You know, having these cog fortresses and stuff. And hopefully we're going to see them united again. And when they do, I'll be sure to do another video on them for sure. Of course, like what I've said as well is like you've got all these, the cities that they have established, and ultimately, like I say, the Stormcast might be like the really fancy fighters for Order and seem to be, like the most powerful. And well, I don't mean the most powerful, but like they seem to be like these demigod figures. But ultimately, they're fighting for the free people. They're fighting for, for life to prosper and things like that in the Mortal Realms. If humans weren't around, what are they sort of fighting for? And I think with that, it's a good chance to end it. So we'll at some point we'll do another one of these videos and we'll cover another army. Until then, we'll have a think about what we're going to cover. But anyway, Nathan, thank you very much for coming on the show and talking about the Empire. Really, really do lean on your knowledge of the old world there, and it's been absolutely great.
Oh no problem. I enjoy doing this series because it's really fun to just kind of see what's changed. Like I get really curious when I hear you talking. I'm like, but what about this?
Yes, and well, exactly. And what I say is like there are some really, really good stories. Actually, to be fair, really good novels that involve like the free people and give them that bit of character. Because basically, when I say about lore, I mainly get my lore from army books and stuff. Because I'm severely dyslexic, so I don't really read all the big novels. I love the lore when people explain them to me, but I mainly get my lore from easy to read chunks like the core rule book or battle tomes, codexes, those sorts of things. So there are actually some good novels you can read, and I think one of them is called like the City of Secrets, I believe, which is about a free people city that has got a cult of Sinesh, sorry, not a cult of Sinesh, a cult of Zeech going through it. There are other things as well. There's quite a lot. I'm just trying to think of them off the top of my head at the moment. I'm afraid I can't. But if you make your way to the Black Library, there are certainly some lore novels and just books out there that can really give you that flavor for you to really come up with your own lore for your army. But yes, guys, so again, thank you very much for watching this. Thank you again, Nathan, for coming on. And would you like to say goodbye, Nathan?
Yeah, well, guys, if you're hearing me from Age of Nagash's channel, just a little quick note. If you're interested in old school Warhammer Fantasy lore and maybe even battle reports, which I've just started doing, I post a battle report once a week now, and the lore, it kind of fluctuates depending on my real life work, because obviously, we're not big YouTubers, so we're not really earning 50 million pounds a day, or I don't know what these guys do, but like we push it. We're working men, man, so we push out content as soon as we can. If you're interested in the battle reports, which is pretty fun, they're usually about an hour long, an hour and a half, check them out. We've got some local players who are taking part. I've got some players coming down from Spain soon. It's kind of fun because you get to see the old form. Like if you try compare Age of Sigmar to how Warhammer Fantasy plays, it's completely different, so that might be kind of interesting. And obviously, if you're listening to on my channel, check out Age of Nagash. He's got a bunch of really cool videos recently released. I believe he started talking about how to perfectly bubble up your good units.
Yes, I did indeed. I was just sort of basically I wanted to do a video talking about the tournament I went to, but waiting for some pictures for Warhammer community to put up. So I thought, what can I talk about? And I thought, actually, this is something that came up loads in the tournament. And I posted it, and this to be fair, it's me being a bit ignorant. I thought like most people know this, but there's some new players and stuff who don't know that tactic. I haven't seen that tactic before, so it's really, really good to get it out there for them, so everyone can benefit from a simple rule of bubble wrapping. It's a case of like, right, I've got a cool model here, and you've got a cool model, right? Whoever wins the charge is going to kill the other cool model, or just put a shield in front of it and say, "Oh, you charged me, now you kill the models in front, and then I get to attack you." It's just little tactics that can make a big difference in the combat, and if it makes a big difference in combat, it can make a big difference in the turn, and it makes a big difference in the turn, it can potentially change the outcome of the game. But yes, if you are watching this on my channel, make sure you check out the Great Book of Grudges. There's absolutely fantastic lore videos. What I really like about him compared to some other YouTubers, I mean, well, majority of YouTubers are great, but what I like about the Great Book of Grudges, he goes into that little bit extra detail about some things that just aren't covered by other YouTubers that really add that bit of flavor to what we all love in a fantasy. And what he was saying about the battle reports, I'm going to start watching a couple as well. Like, I don't play fantasy, but I really do like the look of the whole regiment blocks and stuff. And it's just, like I say, Age of Sigmar is my favorite game, all those sorts of things. But it is cool to hear the name characters and stuff being fought in a mighty battles indeed. So make sure you go check out the Great Book of Grudges for that.
Awesome. Thank you, dude. I do appreciate this.
That's okay. No worries, mate. Anyway, so like I say, great doing a video of you. And remember, guys, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.